makes the meal. New perfect pairing seasoning and potatoes, only from Hungry Jack.
CBSN, the live digital news network from CBS News. Watch live anywhere, anytime. CBSN, CBS News, always on.
On CBS This Morning, we say the news is back in the morning, and we mean it.
Those are not just empty words to us. That's just not a catchy phrase. We actually mean that, and we deliver on that.
We believe in the mission of telling the world what's happening and why. This is your eye-opener to this day.
CBS This Morning, weekdays.
In Michigan, a 32-year-old man was sentenced to 30 days in jail for a traffic violation. 17 days later, he was dead. The question, was it an accident or neglect? Here's Don Dahler.
The jail surveillance video is disturbing. It shows the steady deterioration and eventual death of a human being. In June of last year, David Stajewski was serving 30 days in the Macomb County Jail for failure to pay a $772 fine for careless driving. At the time, Stajewski's family says he was being treated for drug addiction with methadone, Xanax, and Klonopin. Psychologists say those drugs are crucial to staving off potentially deadly withdrawal symptoms. Robert Erie is the family's attorney.
He was receiving treatment that was wholly inadequate. If he was receiving treatment at all, it was minimal.
Stajewski was stripped of all clothing according to jail protocol for his own protection and placed in a special unit. He began to demonstrate withdrawal symptoms, including convulsions. Cellmates can be seen eating his food. Stajewski eventually lost 50 pounds. Denied his medication, his behavior became erratic. At one point, he fought with a fellow inmate. Afterwards, he had the cell all to himself. But on the jail video, his declining mental and physical state became even more pronounced. The 32-year-old would often hide under the bed.
It is an example of a larger problem that exists nationally with respect to the proper treating and handling and maintaining of young people who go into local jails and state prisons with health and addiction problems.
A little over 2 weeks into his sentence, Stajewski lay down on a thin mat on the concrete floor. He can be seen twitching, his breathing labored. Eventually, jail employees entered the cell and began CPR. Stajewski was pronounced dead at the hospital.
The family has filed a lawsuit. Even though the cell was under 24-hour surveillance, the family alleges no one came to help Stajewski, despite him being on the floor and not eating. Jeff, the Sheriff's Department is not commenting on the case.
Don Dahler, thank you very much. Up next here, a base brawl between teammates.
Papelbon went right after Harper.
Welcome back to CBS This Morning.
I said it was going to be a good morning.
The best ever.
Fantastic.
My morning show is this one right here.
You guys are great.
I'll be here every day.
We are in good company with this one right here.
If they're in the news, they're on CBS This Morning.
It's CBS in the morning, so y'all keep watching.
A rare spectacle in the sky tonight, a total lunar eclipse and a supermoon on the same night. For the first time in 33 years, since 1982. It won't happen again until 2033. Peak viewing started a little after 7 Pacific and goes for an hour plus. A violent fight today between Major League Baseball teammates. Outfielder Bryce Harper and pitcher Jonathan Papelbon exchanging words in the dugout when Papelbon lunges and grabs Harper by the throat. Harper left the game after this. It is not clear exactly what led to that fight. At today's St. Louis Rams-Pittsburgh Steelers football game, there was drama before the contest. A stray pyrotechnic during team introductions set the turf on fire, at least part of it. The game had to be delayed 30 minutes while crews cleaned up the mess. A high school football player in California is towering above the competition these days, literally. Senior lineman John Cron from Riverside is 7 feet tall and 440 pounds. Taller than any player in the NFL. It's an advantage on the field, less so off the field, according to his mom, Cindy.
He can't go to Disneyland because he can't fit in any of the rides.
Cron is looking at college in Montana for next year. He says if football doesn't work out, he'd like to be a police officer. Still ahead here, the most memorable moments of an historic visit. Pope Francis has finished his first ever U.S. visit and is on his way back to the Vatican tonight. CBS News foreign correspondent Alan Pizzi has been with the Pope, sometimes very close, the entire way all week. He filed this reporter's notebook.
From the moment Pope Francis took his first steps on this trip, there were events that stood out and at times bemused. Who else but Cuban President Raul Castro could make a welcoming speech that equated a socialist revolution with the ideals and aims of the Catholic Church? Ordinary Cubans, however, had only one thing on their minds: would the Pope's efforts mean an end to the U.S. trade embargo? His arrival in the U.S. was classic Francis, welcomed at the steps of the plane by the President, and then climbing into a Fiat. What better way to show Americans that they were about to see and hear something exceptional? The rapturous reception when he hit the streets was familiar.
There it is. There's the Fiat. Right down there. Oh! Did you see him?
But this reporter wasn't prepared for the rapture of a fellow correspondent.
And I think he was waving directly at you.
Did you hear my excitement? I felt like a little girl again.
The commentary made it clear how privileged we who travel with the Pope actually are, to get to shake his hand, look him in the eye, and feel the warmth that emanates from the man.
We are living at a critical moment of history.
Francis' speech at the White House was the first I'd ever heard him deliver in English. Unlike his homilies in Italian or Spanish, he barely deviated by a word. The deliberate delivery, diction, and emphasis drove home his message in a way no translation ever could.
God bless America.
And then there was the extraordinary security. Never was so much carbon emitted to protect a man so concerned about global warming, or, who in the words of his press spokesman, is happiest when there's no security at all. The classic moment was when this little girl breached the lines, and Francis had her brought over for a blessing.
Do unto others as you will have them do unto you.
As for the Pope's breaches of the barriers of politics, you didn't have to be a policy wonk to figure out who stood where on the controversial points like climate change and immigration laws. But it was the enthusiasm of ordinary people which stood out above all. One was left with the overall impression that the reaction to Francis and his messages will linger, and the politicians ignore it at their peril. Alan Pizzi, CBS News, aboard the papal flight.
The Overnight News will be right back.
What's it feel like when a woman's having a heart attack? Chest pain, like there's a ton of weight on